Hello everyone and welcome for this new video. In today's episode we're going to talk about brushwork and the difference between tight and loose brushwork. So if you don't know about the difference between tight and loose, let's say that tight is when you don't have any visible brushwork on the actual main parts of the painting. Let's say that all the shapes are well defined and you don't really see the mark of the brush, whereas loose is when you can see visible brush marks in the painting and they are part of the aesthetics. Tight versus loose is not necessarily a matter of technique. It's not even a technique. It's not necessarily a style either. It's more a mindset. It's in your head. How far are you going to push the refinements of the shapes? Are you going to be happy if things look like they've just been painted very, very quickly with a lot of energy? Or are you going to try to push for a more detailed look? Do you want to be sure that the shapes are exactly right, or do you want to go more for an expressive look? If you want to make sure that everything is at the exact right spot, you can take artists like Ingres, for instance, where you have a sense of details that's absolutely remarkable. And this is, very, very tight. And if you want some examples of what loose brushwork can look like, take artists like Sargent. So it's, as I said, it's not a technique, it's not a style, it's more the mindset. And because it's in your head, you don't necessarily choose to be tight or loose. Generally, like let's say if you're a very organized and very structured person in your head, like if you want everything to be very methodical, there is a good chance that you're going to naturally be a little bit more tight. It's not necessarily all the time, not generalizing, but there's a good chance that you might be like this. And if you're a very spontaneous, very expressive person, there's also a good chance that you will be a more loose person in your brushwork because, well, you don't mind leaving a mess. What you want is the energy. Whereas if you're a more structured person, you don't want the mess. You want things to appear very clearly. So there's a difference of mindset, and you can't necessarily force yourself out of your own personality. Being loose or tight, it's not necessarily something that you really have control over. I'm gonna give you some tips that can make you self-aware of that, and when you're self-aware, you can make an effort to be, you cannot, like, let's say you're a very tight painter, you want to suddenly become loose. It's not going to be easy, but you can make an effort to be less tight. And if you think that you're too loose and that sometimes your paintings become too messy and you don't have enough control, well, you're not going to become tight the next day, but you can make an effort to be less loose. All right, so this is very simple, but it's something, you want to be aware of that. And just generally, like everything else in the world, it's all a matter of balance. Where do you find yourself between loose and tight? Where do you consider your best qualities to be, and what do you actually want your final artwork to look like? So let's have a demonstration. I'm going to show you the mindset and how to keep the gestures and paint loose or so to get a very loose sort of approach, what you want is keep your brushwork very fluid. You want quick motion, you want to avoid to press too much. You want to paint wet on wet. This is a very important aspect of painting loose. And basically you want to keep the brush strokes visible. You don't want to blend too much, and just use whatever you have, and make sure that the brushwork just pleases you. That's about it. And the only thing is, it's all a matter of how you transition one color to the other. This is why I have two colors right here. I have one which is turquoise blue, and the other one is cadmium red. So you keep the brushwork energetic. You don't mind leaving impasto parts, and if you have a mistake like this one, just cover it with more paint and leave brushwork. Make sure that everything sort of transmits the energy of the gesture. Try to keep some movement. And there's no rule about this, just create a couple of brush marks and see which one works, which one doesn't work, and try to make something out of it. With a very loose brush style, you will have times when colors sort of pollute each other. Like from here, like you can see some visible marks of red, like sort of infiltrating into the range of the blue color right here. Well, this is going to happen, of course, and this is absolutely no way around it. Well, the only thing you can do is still keep doing this, and if you want to keep working on this loosely, you have to take a decent amount of paint on your brush. Your brush always have to be loaded with color. You can push it as far as you want, and you can really clearly create some very strong impastos. This is what's pretty cool and very, very fun with painting loose. Now let's work on the tighter part. So the tight part is, you're gonna start the same way, basically, but it's just that you're not gonna end at the same spot. Is you want to cover and make sure that you don't see traces of brush marks at the end. For that, you might need some softer brush, and you might want to brush a little bit more. You don't want to empty your brushes of paint. You want to keep reloading your brush because, well, you don't want to rub the dry canvas. You just want to make sure that the transition disappears. It's important to not blend with a dry brush. I did a video on this subject, so if you want to have a look, you can. But having a softer brush is, of course, very beneficial for painters who want to paint with very tight manner. So basically start the same way. You apply the paint. It's just that with a tight approach, it doesn't stop at the same spot. If you paint tight, what you want to do is keep brushing until everything is very clear and very unified. For a tight painter, you're going to brush a little bit more. You're going to use the brush more, so it's going to take more time. Especially if you want to get in these details. Alright, so once all the paint is applied, now the goal is to make sure that you don't have any visible brush marks. And I would say that it's not necessarily doesn't necessarily rely on what brushes you're using or the material that you're using. It's more in your head. It's happening in your head. Are you okay with how messy it looks? So if you are okay, you're probably a loose person. And if you're not, well, you're probably a tight person. When do you consider your job to be done determines where you're located between loose and tight. And that's about it. And there you go. You can push it. You can push it even more. Like for this demonstration, I'm not gonna, but then this is just a demonstration. It doesn't apply the same way in all paintings. It's a very complex process, of course. There you go, loose or tight? Tell me in the comments section below, what kind of painter are you? If you want to know more about oil painting and you don't necessarily know where to start, you can also check out my oil painting course, The Practical Guide to Oil Painting Techniques and Materials, which covers all technical and practical aspects of oil paintings with a 2 hours demonstration where I demonstrate how I painted this portrait. So you have this portrait and an extra, if you take the extended version, you get an extra demonstration showing a still life alla prima. So you have both a sharp painting, not extremely tight, but sort of more tight than anything. You have more details in the portrait. Being tight allows more details, and a more loose approach with an alla prima still life demonstration with an open palette. So you have everything, all the material, and you have demonstration of both approaches. So that's pretty interesting. If you want to check it out, the links are in the description box. As always, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. I'll see you for the next video, and until then, have fun painting.